Chapter 559, Nightmare, 7. Since entering this dream, Eugene had harbored the same question. The first dream, a cozy, peaceful family home, a warm kitchen with gentle heat. That dream had been Hamel's ideal future, envisioned during his time in the Devildom. After killing all the demon kings and ending the war if he returned home intact, this was how he wanted to live. He had thought it a provocation, a deception, and a mockery. If that were the case, Noir's stratagem had been brilliant. What she presented as dreams were the futures Hamel, Sienna, and Anise had envisioned. But was it merely a provocation? He couldn't help but question his assumption. Noir's fabricated dreams always starred her and Eugene as the main characters. Sienna, Anise, Christina, or anyone else barely mattered in the dreams crafted by Noir. They did not exist. It was always a dream shared by just Eugene and Noir. Even when Eugene shattered the dream in denial, Noir quickly recreated another, similar in content if not in form. And she asked him if he liked the current dream. She even pleaded. All of this intensified the doubts Eugene harbored. Morgiabella seemed as if she did not wish for death. It almost seemed she hoped for a different ending. Eugene did not want to entertain such thoughts, thinking this could shake his resolve. He remembered the kiss Noir had forced upon him in Horia, as well as the conversations they had shared under the curtain-like wings. At that time Noir had been in despair. Her emotions, her love, had been tainted with those of Arya and could no longer be called just Morgiabella's. At that time Eugene had despaired as well. Noir's awakening to her past life made it feel as if it was impossible for him to treat her as before. He feared that he might hesitate to kill her at the very end. Their mutual confusion and agitation had then reached a conclusion. Both had awakened from the brief illusion they had succumbed to. For Eugene Lionheart, Morgiabella was an enemy that had to be killed. Not to kill her would mean denying the very foundation of Hamel and Eugene's lives. The life he lived under these two names would be devoured by the distant past life of Ogoroth. Morgiabella could not consider Eugene Lionheart as her enemy. Noir loved Eugene and she loved Hamel, though for irrational reasons. That emotion, if it must be expressed in a word other than love, could only be described as madness. Noir desired the reality of death. She craved loss, regrets, and mourning. She wanted the passionate destruction that would make her clumsy and break and ruin herself. Yet the current Noir was acting in contradiction to what she herself had wanted. She acted as if she did not want to face the end, as if she did not want to kill Eugene, as if she did not want to die. She was repeatedly showing the future they could share together through the dreams. She was begging Eugene for it even now. Why? Eugene spoke in a hoarse voice, his lips crushed and bitten. Like the scent of blood and corpses that filled his nostrils, the pain from biting his lips felt just as real. Despite the bloodied lips, the voice that emerged carried no sense of reality. It was undoubtedly Eugene's voice, yet it seemed as though someone else was speaking. "Why are you taking that form?" he asked. Noir was currently assuming the appearance of Arya. Just as Ogoroth and Eugene did not resemble each other, Noir did not resemble Arya either. Yet Noir had deliberately chosen to take on Arya's appearance. Her voice and her attire were those from Agoroth's memories. Assuming such a guise was a great contradiction for Noir. Back in Horia, her despair had stemmed from her emotions not being entirely her own. Thus Noir had vehemently denied Arya. She had seized Eugene by the neck and then kissed him abruptly. Their lips had locked, their lips had parted, and their tongues had entwined. The kiss, devoid of sweetness, romance, or innocence, was far removed from Arya's last. "Why, I wonder," she responded. Arya's expression had not changed from the start of this nightmare. It was lonely, even sorrowful. She wore a smile that seemed on the verge of tears. Eugene recognized her expression. It was the smile Arya had worn while embracing Ogoroth, with her face half torn. Everything about Noir now reminded him of Arya. She was stirring his emotions in his mind, consciously and deliberately. But was that really true? His stream of thoughts concluded with a question. He could not allow this to happen. He could not be conscious of it. He should think no further. Yet he couldn't control it as he intended. His emotions churned. His cheeks twitched. He couldn't even discern what expression he was making at the moment. Noir had invited Eugene to her city. As soon as he crossed the city gate he was sucked into a dream that could be happy, that had the potential to be happy. Depending on how one accepted it, it was not a nightmare at all. If he had just relented, if he had just discarded his murderous intent toward Noir, if he had just given up on himself, doing so would, in fact, have smoothed things over much more than now. Noir was formidable. Even the demon king of incarceration might struggle to confront the current Noir. If Eugene did not kill Noir but instead they came to an understanding and accepted the emotions of their past lives, then we ended in tragedy, said Noir in her Arya form. It was just as Arya said. The deaths of Agaroth and Arya, it was all a tragedy. It had been their first and last kiss. Even knowing their feelings for each other, he had no choice but to break her neck. He had no choice but to order everyone to advance, already knowing everyone would die. In the end, even Agaroth died. So many lives were sacrificed, and all it did was delay the demon king of destruction for a few days. We don't need to repeat the tragedy, Noir continued. Agaroth had loved that voice. After the battle, upon his return, he would hear her voice. Congratulations on your victory, my lord. Agaroth had loved that whisper, which was always accompanied by her thin, delicately drawn smile. It looked as if it had been drawn by a fine pen. When he returned to his room after the banquet with the intention to drink a few more glasses of wine alone, the door would open without a knock. He always anticipated it. Watching Arya enter, cradling a bottle of mediocre wine, Agaroth wondered if today, the wine might contain a poison or a curse lethal even to a god. Are you not going to drink? My lord, such a request is too burdensome and cruel for me. How can a saint contend to drink with a god? So you won't drink because it's poisoned, I take it. Yes, I have indeed added a lethal poison. Thus I shall never touch the wine. My lord, if the poison in this insignificant concoction frightens you, please put the cup away. Her attire was too flimsy to be considered that of the saints. Agaroth had liked the languid voice under the flickering light, the coquettish smile mixed with flirtation. Ultimately, he had loved the taste of the wine, which was never poisoned or cursed, just plain. My lord, the sun has long since risen. Please open your eyes and rise. He never showed it. He always recoiled and pushed it away, for if he did not, that bewitching creature would tease and tempt him with a mischievous smile. But he liked the whispering voice by his ear as well as the sweet and hot breath that tickled his cheek. Hamel. Arya took another step towards Eugene. Behind her the twilight trembled. Arya's smile and her ruby-like eyes quivered. Tears welled up and rolled down her moist eyes. Please hold me, she asked. Arya spread her arms. Hold me, kiss me. Whisper my name in my ear, she begged. Eugene could not move. He still couldn't tell what expression he was making. A torrent of emotions churned through his torn heart. The despair and regret Agaroth had felt at the end, the hope that they might now face a different ending, shook Eugene's mind and emotions. Hamel, she called out. Arya took another step closer. Eugene couldn't move. Though in truth he wanted to move. He wanted to give the response Arya desired. Even he himself wished for it. Not wanting it was impossible. This dream was too deep. With a crunch he drove the glass blade into his neck. No spark was ignited. The blade, cutting diagonally, caught at his collarbone. Gurk. His throat, choked with emotion, made no sound. The boiling, gurgling blood inside became a sound and parted Eugene's lips. The tumult of emotions washed away from him. All the thoughts cluttering his mind ceased abruptly due to an intuitive brush with death. Arya stopped in her tracks and looked at Eugene. Crunch, crunch. The glass blade, still emitting no sparks, advanced slowly, ever so slowly, slicing through Eugene's body. A diagonal cut across the neck would completely sever it with a mere touch. The blade, having passed the collarbone, was now cutting the edge of the heart and slicing through the lungs. The movement of the blade was slow, but nevertheless, Eugene was unhurriedly and deliberately cutting through his own body. Were sparks to fly, his body would incinerate in an instant. No, there was no need for flames. The beautiful glass blade was sharp enough to slice through anything it touched. Yet still he pushed it forward slowly, almost with no force, little by little. Arya wiped the tears streaming down her cheeks. With the tears her smile disappeared too. She looked at Eugene with cold, settled eyes and reached out her hand. Boom. The dream trembled. The sky distorted. This disturbance was not intended by Noir. She stopped her hand and clicked her tongue. It's too deep for me as well, Noir muttered. There was a dream encompassing the entire city. She could accept humans whether millions or tens of millions. A single world could spawn dreams for millions, fulfilling all their desires and fantasies instantly and perpetually. But Eugene was no ordinary human. Trapping him in a dream and creating dreams for him was way harder than doing the same for tens of millions of humans. Noir herself was expending a great deal of mental energy, having delved deep into the dream herself to assimilate Eugene's mind as much as possible. She had embraced memories and emotions deeply. However, Noir murmured as she caressed her cheek, "It wasn't a lie." Eugene didn't hear her. He was listening to a different sound, the sound of the blade cutting flesh and bone, the blood bursting upon the blade. And then, a prayer. A calling of names. The voice he heard now was not that of Arya, which Agaroth had loved. It wasn't the sound of her calling her god. The blade stopped. "I feel refreshed," said Eugene. His lips foamed with blood and his eyes were bloodshot as he looked at Arya. The nightmare was too deep. Even with his divinity, with his sanctuary, resisting such a deep nightmare was not easy. Had his decision to sever his throat and kill his mind been delayed, had he succumbed to Arya's pleas and embraced her? Noir Giabella. Eugene called out a name, but it wasn't Arya's. Thus he distinguished what was and what wasn't. The figure before Eugene was not the Twilight Witch Arya, nor was it the god of war Agaroth's saint. It was the queen of the night demons Noir Giabella. "Are you wearing that skin to confuse me?" Eugene asked as he pulled out Levantian from his body. No blood spurted out, instead flames surged and filled the wound. "Do you repeat these tragedies, say these things to completely engulf me in this nightmare?" he questioned. He hoped that would be the case. He hoped that Noir had concocted this farce solely with deceit and mockery. If so, Noir would remain utterly incomprehensible to him, an entity incapable of harboring any emotion other than murderous rage and anger. Without waiting for Noir's answer, Eugene continued, "And if it's not?" He listened to prayers coming from afar, Anise and Christina's voices, not as saints of Agaroth, but as the saints of Eugene Lionheart. "Why would you say such things?" he questioned. Arad Latsty chapter at freeabnovel.com only. He felt the dream tremble. He could not hear Sienna, but she was the only one outside the dream who could cause such a disturbance. "What name do you wish to be embraced under and by whom?" Eugene asked. "Either way it's me and either way it's you," Noir responded without a smile. However, Eugene only perceived her answer as a play on words. To others it might not matter, but for Eugene and Noir, names were of profound significance. "I have something I want to ask too," Noir spoke first, breaking the short silence. "Do you really want this dream to end?" The twilight trembled. "Do you really want to go out into reality?" she questioned. The redness in the sky deepened. "Do you truly wish to face the real me?" she asked. From that question, Eugene couldn't help but feel that since entering this dream, Noir had always been sincere. Every appearance she had shown, every contradiction had been Noir's true feelings. That was why Noir was hesitating. "I'll be honest with you, Hamel," she said, not waiting for Eugene's answer. The nightmare was quivering. "I wish this dream could last forever," she admitted. Eugene looked at her silently. "I want to continue to be in this dream with you," Noir confessed. Chapter 560. Nightmare 8. Bonus image. Eugene gazed at Noir's face against the backdrop of the trembling twilight. Her face, facing away from the setting sun, was shadowed and dark, yet her expression was clearly visible even in the dim light. There was no smile on Noir's lips. There was not even a hint of playfulness in her at that moment. "In this dream we can kill and be killed forever," Noir whispered. "Death here might not be the death I have longed to understand all my life. But if I'm with you I can give up such things." Noir slowly raised her hand. The ring on her ring finger caught the twilight and emitted a faint glow. She caressed her neck with her left hand and continued softly, "Beyond killing and being killed, there is much more we can do. In this dream we can dream many dreams, not just nightmares. Hamel, having experienced many dreams, you know my words are neither false nor pretentious." Of course he knew. Without the awareness of it being a dream, this world would be no different from reality. In fact, it could be better than reality. If he did not desire nightmares, if he wished for joyful and happy dreams, this world could fulfill all the fantasies Eugene could ever want. "We can do anything here," Noir promised. "We can do anything here," Noir promised. Noir's hand clasped her throat as she felt the pulsing of her heartbeat and continued. Here we can dream endless dreams forever. If you wish, Hamel, if you truly wish, I will gladly become Arya for you. With Arya's face, with Arya's voice, I will serve you as my god. Eugene still gazed at Noir without uttering a word. But ideally, I would rather you wanted me instead. You don't have to love me. It's okay to kill me hundreds of thousands of times. If you want me, that is enough for me, Noir voiced her desire. Eugene closed his eyes briefly, not wanting to see the ring on Noir's finger. He did not want to see the neck she clasped, the necklace or the ring that dangled there. Hamel. But Noir wasn't done yet. With unwavering eyes, she continued to stare at Eugene and said, I spoke of forever. That was no lie. Time flowed differently in dreams than in reality. If Noir wished, she could turn a year in the dream into just a day in reality. Of course, I cannot achieve this eternity alone. This place is our dream, yours and mine. But if you accept it, we can truly achieve eternity in this dream, she continued to entice. Whoosh. The form of the trembling dream changed. The corpse-strewn wasteland bloomed with green grass and flowers of various colors. A shimmering lake appeared, and a quaint mansion stood tall as if straight from a fairy tale book. In that eternity we will never be bored. We can enjoy new days every day, she said, weaving a story. The grass turned into brick pathways. The lake transformed into a massive castle and the flowers became buildings. Suddenly Eugene and Noir were in the middle of a bustling small city. If the languor of idle days becomes wearisome, I shall create a dazzling city for you. I know, Hamel. Humans continue to only ever seek greater desires. That's no problem. I am Noir Giabella, the queen of the night demons. I have witnessed millions of desires and crafted millions of dreams. All these will enrich our eternity, Noir promised. Eugene opened his eyes. I understand, Hamel, Noir whispered. You have a mission, a destiny. What you have wished for, and what has been entrusted to you by another. All the gods had willingly entered the mouth of the god of the giants. The god of giants had become the light. The sage had turned into the world tree. Vermouth had reincarnated Hamel. The spectre had wished to save the world. I know you are not one to ignore your mission and destiny. Even if you grumble in displeasure, you ultimately do not forsake expectations and desires. You cannot forsake them. Eugene listened to Noir's monologue in silence. Slaying the demon king of incarceration and the demon king of destruction. You do not even concern yourself with whether it is possible. Noir chuckled softly, releasing her hand from around her throat. But Hamel, not everyone can be like you. Not everyone can move forward as you do. Some might prefer a thin, long day-to-day life over an honorable and sublime death. Some might choose happiness until the very end over an uncertain war. Her laughter tapered off. I can even embrace such weakness. I can invite everyone you know, those who do not wish to die, to a blissful dream. Until the world ends, we can enjoy eternity in our dreams. Noir paused, a brief silence allowing her to compose her emotions and grasp the core of the fluctuating dream. Even Sienna Meridian, Anise Slywood and Christina Rogerus, though I truly dislike them. Hamel, if you wish it, I will invite them into the dream. If needed, I vow not to control their emotions. I promise them freedom, Noir offered. Her hand moved from her neck to her chest, pressing down on her fluttering heart. I dislike them and naturally they dislike me too. But if it must be so, Hamel, for the sake of dreaming an eternal dream with you, I am willing to compromise. Perhaps, who knows? Maybe in the dream we could grow a bit closer, Noir suggested with a laugh. Though she said this, she thought it unlikely. Yet if those three kept their decorum and acted appropriately in their place, Noir would gladly grant them the right to love Hamel. She continued, maybe, just maybe, we could become quite friendly, idly chatting away. Yes, Hamel, with you. Traveling through dreams, sitting at the same table to eat, entering the same bathtub, lying in the same bed. It's hard to imagine, but it might not be so bad after all. Noir, Eugene interrupted. Ignoring the voice, Noir continued, and sometimes we might even discuss the problems of reality, not just dreams. We might wonder how much time has passed outside. Maybe the demon king of incarceration will disrupt our blissful eternity. So then together. Noir Giabella. A low but firm voice cut her off. That's your name, Eugene said. He felt the tremors intensifying. The queen of the night demons, Noor Giabella, he repeated. The once distant shaking was now drawing ever closer. Your sweet dreams will never become reality, he said. He heard a voice. It was faint and small, yet it was not a whisper. The saints were calling out Eugene's name with desperation. Hamel, Noir responded. She slowly smiled. Do you really want to end this dream? He knew. A dream was just a dream. Everything Noir spoke of, it was all but an illusion that could never manifest into reality. It was a contradictory fantasy that denied the very foundation of the relationship and feelings between Noir and Eugene. To make that sweet, blissful dream last forever, both Noir and Eugene would have to let go of many emotions. Eugene would have to discard his intent to kill her, seeing her not as Noor Giabella but merely as the reincarnation of Arya. Noir would have to forget all the reasons she had fallen in love with Hamel. She would need to relinquish her lifelong yearning for death. Do you really want to step out into reality, not just dreams? Noir asked one last time, knowing all of this. Yes, Eugene responded, also knowing it all. There could be no other answer. He hadn't even considered it. His response was calm and unwavering. Through countless repeated dreams, through numerous pleas and appeals, after much confusion, agitation and hesitation, Eugene spoke a clear conclusion: there is no such thing as an eternal dream. His voice was soft yet steady. Eugene's eyes gleamed. He lifted his sword, Levantian, which was soaked in his own blood, to the side. Dreams are meant to be awakened from eventually, he proclaimed. Flames sparked from the blood-soaked blade, instantly causing the blood to evaporate. Whoosh. This flame was the brightest and most vivid of all the flames ever conjured in all the dreams. In the dreams where the scenery changed countless times, the only constant, the dusky red of twilight, was pushed aside by the light emitted from Levantian's flames. Ah! Noor let out a sound. It sounded like an exclamation yet also like a sigh. She pressed down harder on her throbbing heart, overwhelmed with excitement, sorrow, joy and love. She felt the pounding of her bursting heart through her left hand, adorned with a ring. Noir's smile changed. She no longer smiled like Arya, wistfully and painfully. Noor Giabella smiled, a smile befitting the queen of the night demons, a smile Eugene had known for 300 years. Brilliant, Noir said. Crack. Her fingers pierced through the fabric and dug into her chest. Bright red blood filled Noir's palm. The ring was stained with blood. She felt even more vivid pulsations. I have suffered in this moment. I confused during my existence. I was swayed by memories and emotions that were not mine. I felt both love and hatred. I wandered lost among contradictions, Noir admitted. She strode forward, the crimson twilight that seemed ready to swallow the world trailing behind her. I can swear to you, Hamel, every word I whispered in the dream was true. If you had wished to be with me, I would have been there as I pleaded, she said. I know, Eugene answered. Prominence soared high. Eugene's divine flames shone brilliantly against the twilight that filled the dream. Noir perceived beauty in that sight. She felt the resolved, scar-ridden intent that had almost crumbled but ultimately stood firm. He felt love. It was so endearing that it was unbearable. Come, Hamel, Noir whispered. Come and kill me in this dream. With your sword. Burn down the dream that could have lasted forever. Eugene silently stepped forward. Whoosh. The divine flames pushed Eugene's body forward. Levantian, wrapped in flames, swept through the dream world. Noir had always tried to avoid a direct slash by Levantian. Even in a dream, being cut by that sword was fatal to maintaining the dream. When it seemed inevitable, she would end the dream herself and start anew. This time she did not. Noir, smiling brightly, pulled her hand from her chest. Her blood-soaked left hand stretched towards Eugene. The blood spewing from her chest scattered from her hand and fluttered like petals. Hamel. Her lips parted with a faint smile and blood dripped out. Her ring-adorned left hand slowly moved to touch Eugene's cheek. This is the end of the dream. Noir offered no resistance to Levantian. She willingly opened her chest, allowing the sword to pierce her through. Her heart burst. Yet Noir still heard its steady beat. She felt a surge of euphoria spreading through her body. The twilight has passed, she said. The hand caressing his cheek felt warm. He felt the ring. Eugene silently looked into Noir's eyes. They were close. He felt her hot breath. He smelled the thick scent of blood. But, Noir whispered. Rumble. The blood-red sky melted away. The flames from Levantine seeped into the dream and started to burn everything. The saint's prayers were clear and close. A wedge was driven deep into the dream. Sienna did not miss it. Levantine's flames burnt through the dream, and Sienna's magic shook and crumbled the world outside the dream. Dawn will not come, Noir proclaimed. Her blood-soaked lips curved into a broad smile. Everything collapsed. Noir was consumed by the flames and turned to ash. The ground beneath crumbled and Eugene fell into a vast abyss. He tried to fly up with prominence, but it was not to be. The concept of flight seemed to have vanished from the world. All Eugene could do was fall into an unknown depth. At that moment, a tiny light appeared in the distance and pierced the darkness. Unconsciously, Eugene reached toward the light. It quickly drew nearer and took on a form. Hamel. Sir Eugene. Two voices sounded. The light stretched a hand toward Eugene, who grasped it without hesitation. He opened his eyes. The feeling was faint. Was this place the reality? Or had the previous dream ended, only for a new one to start? How long had he been in the dream? Questions spread through his mind, followed by a brief sense of powerlessness. He felt exhausted. His head throbbed and his chest ached. He tasted blood in his mouth. This was reality. All these sensations affirmed that this was indeed reality. The dream had ended. He had awakened from his sleep. No longer did the voices of the saints sound from afar or near. They resounded within Eugene. He felt their light. Rumble. A massive quake shook his body. Eugene steadied his trembling legs and looked around. What a foolish method, he couldn't help but say. Eugene saw the large vines stirring up the vast space of Giabella City, proof of Sienna's magic at work. Still less foolish than a meteor, he thought while pressing his throbbing temples. Did you sleep well? A voice asked. It came from above. He could hear a whisper, good morning or rather good night? He nor that either. A large ornate casino building came into view. Eugene's gaze climbed up the building, passing a darkened neon sign, and met the eyes of two Giabella faces perched on the roof. But Noir was not there. In the pitch-black night sky, without the moon or stars, was where the third Giabella face was floating. More Giabella was above that bizarre flying object. She sat in a splendid chair looking down at Eugene. What a splendid night, Hamel, she said. Against the pitch-black night sky, Noir appeared like a goddess of the night. Her purple eyes sparkled as she parted her red lips and said, Welcome back to the reality you wished for. Noir flashed a playful smile and spread her arms. Whoosh. Light returned to the dark city. Neon signs glowed in vibrant colors, and the entire city awakened from its slumber. Welcome to my city, to Giabella City. Noir Giabella, the mistress of this city, had awakened from her dream and returned to reality. Sienna's magic could no longer shake Giabella City. But Hamel, do you know? Noir said. This reality will still become a nightmare for you. She spoke with a smile, but her intent was deadly. Chapter 561, Night 1. The illuminated city cast a kaleidoscope of colors into the night. Joyful music echoed from every corner. Yet despite all the lights, the darkness above remained undiminished. It seemed to respond to Noir's declaration, undulating like the waves of the sea. Twilight had ended. It was now night. Hamel, I despise the dawn, Noir said. She hated waking up in the morning. Noir rose from her chair, her mind drifting back to the night she had spent in the city with Eugene. They had shopped together, drank together, and strolled through the city. During that time, Noir had wished the night would last forever. She detested the coming of dawn. Those moments had been undeniably real, yet Noir had treated them all as if they were a dream. She had hoped the dream would never end. So, I will prevent the dawn from coming, Noir declared. But the dream had ended. Eugene hadn't wanted it, and Noir had accepted his decision. They had woken up from the dream and returned to reality. Noir leaped off the Giabella face with a smile, descending from the sky without spreading her wings. Eugene stood watching as Noir gracefully descended. They locked eyes and Noir smiled brightly while looking down. Boom. The city trembled. The ground sank with spider web-like cracks spreading through it. Eugene gritted his teeth and braced his knees to counter the impact. It wasn't just a minor tremor but a massive shock capable of crushing Eugene completely. The several layers of protective barriers surrounding Eugene crumpled like paper. The sanctuary that Prominence erected disallowed any violation of God, but right now it was meaningless. Ah, Noor laughed from above Eugene. It wasn't a great attack. Noor had merely dropped from the sky and stomped her foot above Eugene's head. That was all. She continued, I didn't expect you to welcome me like a princess, but that expression of yours, Hamel. The sound of Noir's high heels forcefully pressing down on the sanctuary's barrier intensified. The cracks on the road that Eugene stood on spread further. Soon the road flipped under pressure and the ground began to sink lower. Eugene maintained the sanctuary while gripping his sword, Levantine. It's almost like I'm heavy, Noir whispered with a chuckle. Fush. A burst of flames exploded within the sanctuary, propelling the divine blade across the sanctuary towards Noir. In return she kicked with her long legs. With a loud crash her black shoes kicked away both the flames and the blade. No matter how strong the impact, Levantine did not break. However, Eugene felt as if his arm was being torn off from the impact of just that single kick. Ahaha. Noir laughed loudly while raising her hands high. Rumbly. Purple swirls of dark power began to form a whirlwind between her palms. She slammed her hands downward, and the dark power cascaded like a waterfall directly above Eugene's head. It was not just dark power, it was poison. The poison coursed along the surface of the sanctuary's barrier and began to dissolve the ground where Eugene stood. The road melted into a sludge and sent up plumes of black smoke that were equally toxic. Poison. Eugene thought in surprise. His body was normally impervious to poisons. However, the current venomous aura was so intense that even he felt dizzy. The dream had ended. This was reality. Yet, the current Noir and her demon eye of fantasy could alter even reality itself. While it was impossible to completely remake the world as in a dream, an absolute poison that did not exist in the real world fell within the range of fantasies Noir could conjure. Ordinarily, just breathing in the toxic miasma would result in immediate dissolution, just like the ground, but Eugene's divinity resisted the venom. That didn't mean he was unaffected. The rapid onset of poisoning made his mind reel and his body unresponsive. It's like being drunk, Noir whispered. She extended a finger towards the staggering Eugene. Purple light concentrated at her fingertips. Though Eugene's vision swayed, he could see that the light was piercingly intense. Eugene's body instinctively reacted to the imminent threat of death. Would a direct hit kill him? Perhaps not instantly, but it would inflict injuries severe enough to disable him from fighting momentarily. In Noir Giabella's presence, even a brief moment could lead directly to death. As the purple light shot from Noir's fingertips, Eugene bit his lip. His body was still not fully responsive. Eugene decided to relinquish control of his body. Instead of deliberate movement, he trusted everything on instinct and intuition. He had made the right choice. His body resisted death. Instinct and intuition acted to evade the deadly attack. His body moved on its own and narrowly dodged the magical attack. Boom. A brilliant light burst from the sky. Noir frowned as she watched the descending light. How dare you, she growled. They should have known their place and status. They should have been praying from afar, grateful even for the privilege of observation. Noir expressed her irritation before flicking her finger. Boom. The light exploded in the night sky and scattered like fireworks in all directions. But that was enough. Know their place and status? Though not as Noir had intended, Christina and Anise indeed knew their limits. They knew they couldn't kill Noir Giabella. In fact, they couldn't even inflict a scratch on her. But they were never meant to have such roles. 300 years ago and even now, the place for saints was not beside or ahead of the heroes but behind them. From a few steps back they were to watch the hero's back, to be the first to see if the hero staggered. It reached him, the saints thought in relief. The scattered fragments had reached Eugene. That was enough. His dizziness vanished instantly and his control over his body returned. Miracles focused on healing and purification cleansed Eugene's mind and body. Phew. He exhaled a breath. His gaze met Noir's and she flicked her finger at him with a smirk. Suddenly, lightning cracked across the night sky, striking directly above Noir. What a surprise! Noir exclaimed with a giggle as she caught the lightning as if it were a toy. She hurled the captured lightning like a spear. With a loud swoosh, it flew through the air and reached Rhaenyra instantly. Kayak! Rhaenyra screamed in alarm. Sienna reacted before Rhaenyra could respond with a breath. The lightning was Sienna's spell. However, the moment Noir grasped the lightning, it ceased to be Sienna's magic. As such, Sienna used her powers to dissolve the lightning that was turned against her. Sienna gritted her teeth and soared into the sky, leaping through space to approach the city's center. She had launched a long-distance magical attack from beyond the city limits. But from her attempt, it became clear that such attacks were futile against the current Noir. Magic launched from a distance was easily seized by Noir and turned against its caster. "I warned you," Noir murmured as he sensed Sienna's approach. "If you don't want to die, stay away from our fight." A colossal swirl of dark power whirled around Noir. She attempted to ascend high into the sky, her wings spread wide like a bat's, but she was forced to stop midway. There were dark flames. A sword forged from layers of divine fire sliced through the space. "Impressive," Noir muttered. A darkness that seemed to absorb all colors, a heat so intense that merely breathing it felt like turning one's lungs to ash, and a murderous intent so fierce. It all made Noir acutely aware of Hamel. It reinforced his presence, making the reality ever more tangible. "Right now," Noir said as her hand moved, gathering dark power gently in her open palm. "I stand at the center of the future I dreamed of." She wanted to die at Hamel's hand. She wanted to kill Hamel. She couldn't be certain of the outcome, but the process was delightfully joyous and fulfilling, all the more so because of the bitter and sad dream. Now she was joyful. The end of the dream had made her love Hamel even more. Thus Noir responded with all her might. The small force of dark power in her hand swelled enormously. Both the demon eye of fantasy and the demon eye of divine glory were activated simultaneously. With a clash, chains materialized in the air, blocking the path of the sword. Then fantasy was imbued into the dark power in her palm. The purple energy turned into flames. The flames overlaid each other and grew in intensity. A bright smile played on Noir's lips. She desired the empty sword, and the demon eye of fantasy transformed that desire into reality. While she could not mimic Levantian exactly, Noir's boundless dark power was amplified just like the empty sword. An overwhelming force was created. The demon eye of divine glory summoned chains of incarceration, but Eugene's current sword attack broke even the chains of incarceration. However, the flaming sword unleashed from beyond the chains by Noir could not be shattered. At the moment of collision he was repelled instead. With a tremendous roar, Eugene was thrown backward. The collision extinguished even the flames of Levantian. Such was the overpowering force that it annihilated the divine fire itself. "That's insane," Eugene thought. It felt as though every bone in his body had shattered. In fact, they had. But recovery was swift. While the prayers of saints helped, a body that had reached the divine level possessed an immortality not granted to ordinary humans. "My attacks don't reach," Eugene assessed the situation. He was back in reality, but it was just like the dream. Eugene's attacks did not reach Noir. As she had said, reality too was a nightmare. "No, it's different. I can kill the current Noir," Eugene realized. The divine moonlight sword, Levantian, was a blade forged directly by the light to kill the demon king of incarceration and the demon king of destruction. The flames of Levantian were lethal even to demon kings who wouldn't die. If Noir Giabella was directly struck down and burned by Levantian's divine fire, there would be a limit to her resurrection. The problem was reaching Noir. Eugene had to admit a misconception he had been harboring. Noir was adept at direct combat. Unlike in the dreams, he had assumed he might have had a chance to press her in reality. The situation had indeed somewhat improved. The real Noir wasn't omnipotent as she was in dreams, but that didn't make the fight any easier. Despite falsely believing Noir lacked combat skills, Eugene found himself overwhelmed in a direct confrontation. The previously unleashed prominence now acted as a brake on his airborne body. Feathers he had scattered earlier entered his vision and he leaped instantly. He had intended to penetrate Noir's blind spot, but he realized his mistake mid-leap. It was a failure. Such attacks did not work on Noir. The entire city was under her control. No matter how Eugene moved, he couldn't deceive Noir's senses. Blind spots simply did not exist for her. Ah! A delighted laugh tickled Eugene's ears as something massive suddenly filled his vision. It was the Giabella face that had been perched on the casino roof. The bizarre flying object hurtled toward Eugene. The problem was its speed. Eugene collided with the Giabella face before he could even attempt to dodge. It wasn't just fast, it was heavy too. Eugene was thrust backward again. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound of clock hands moving came from inside the Giabella face. It was an artificial and overt signal. Eugene's face contorted. Such a noise could only mean one thing. Eugene imagined the outcome, and his imagination soon became a reality. Boom. A massive explosion took place. The Giabella face had self-destructed and pushed Eugene back. A simple explosion couldn't harm him, but this explosion was far from simple. The shockwave passed through the sanctuary, causing Eugene to cough up blood. "This attack is too ingenious," he commented. He was not accustomed to this kind of battle. Even now he felt something huge moving behind him. It was a building. One of Giabella City's large buildings, unnaturally equipped with limbs, stomped toward Eugene. Rumbly. The surrounding buildings disassembled and reassembled, attaching themselves to the larger building. A giant concrete fist was raised into the air. "Good heavens," Eugene blurted. Such brutish and massive attacks didn't usually affect Eugene, but while in this city, it was a different story. Though the building looked like a crudely assembled golem, it was imbued with the fantasy Noir desired. With a loud crash, the building's giant fist struck down on Eugene. He immediately swung Levantian, invoking the power of the annihilation hammer, Gigalath. At the moment of impact, the building exploded. Ahaha. Noir, watching from above, laughed heartily and clapped her hands. Even her applause was extraordinary. Every clap shook the city and sent a storm of dark power crashing down. Ugh. Eugene groaned as he swayed forward. He almost toppled but barely managed to stop and turn around. He saw an unreal scene unfold. The nearby buildings were uprooted and floated around Noir. Noir hummed a tune and flicked her fingers. With a rustling sound, the large buildings disassembled and turned into countless stones. The scene was not much different from what had been seen in the dream. The dream Noir had pelted Eugene with stars and moons. The real Noir was smashing him with buildings. The method of assault hadn't changed. A merciless bombardment began. Each stone, imbued with dark power, was as powerful as those stars and moons from the dream. Levantian blazed once more. Before Eugene could even swing his sword, the space around him split open and unfolded. The power of the demon's spear, Luentos, was unleashed, shooting thousands of flames that in turn became spears. Repeated interceptions ensued. Dark power and flames danced together in swirling movements. A mere touch would have reduced anything to ashes. Yet to Noir, it all appeared as a beautiful fireworks display. Noir propped her chin with her hand, her expression enraptured. "Beautiful," she declared sincerely. It wasn't just simple fireworks. It was a moment when all existing bonds and emotions between them were sublimated into intense, sorrowful, murderous intent and exploded. This beautiful spectacle was meant only for Eugene and Noir. It had to be. And yet, "You ignored my warning," Noir said in annoyance. It was an attack that should have been made earlier, an attack that had been blocked by Eugene and thus not executed. But now nothing hindered it. Noir's dark power whirled, a terrifying murderous intent imbued in the purple energy. She gently pushed a newly formed awl with the tip of her finger. She didn't send it flying. Rather, the awl magically leaped and vanished. It appeared in front of Sienna, who was approaching at high speed. Sienna didn't panic but thrust forward her staff, Mary. The dark power she drew from Amelia Merwin combined with Sienna's mana and transformed into soul power. With a clang, the soul power summoned magic that blocked the owl's advance. "Disappear." A whisper sounded close by. Amidst the dissipating dark power, Noir appeared. Her purple eyes flashed brilliantly. The most up-to-date noves are published on frubnoel.co. Forced slumber. The power from close range took its toll on Sienna's mind. She could feel her eyes becoming hazy. A brief look of confusion flitted across Noir's face. She had definitely put Sienna to sleep, but she hadn't managed to push her mind into a nightmare. "It's me." A breathless voice. But it wasn't coming from Sienna's lips. "Do you think I, the goddess of magic, would fall for the same unchanging tactic again and again?" Noir couldn't help but burst into laughter, then sharply raise her gaze to look at the pitch-black night sky. There, connected by a faint thread to her body, was the figure of Sienna, an opaque being. The moment forced slumber was activated and she fell asleep, Sienna had separated her soul from her body. So the only method you could think of was suicide? Noir scoffed derisively. Bang, 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 bang. As if to punish her mockery, magic pierced through Noir's body. Arrows struck both of Noir's eyes. Hundreds more arrows followed through and pierced through Noir's body. In just a moment she looked like a porcupine with hundreds of needles sticking out of her. Naturally, these were no ordinary arrows. The arrows created from soul power carried an absolute force, even without having to intend it. They were imbued solely with the intent to kill. The obliteration of Noir Giabella was the only purpose imbued within the arrows, and hundreds of such sharps had been thrust into her. Sienna gasped as her soul returned to her body. The shock awakened her from forced slumber. This method couldn't entirely avoid forced slumber, but it could prevent the much worse fate of being trapped in oniric cascade. Even for Sienna, being dragged into a dream while asleep would leave her with no recourse. That was why she had separated her body and soul. The moment she fell asleep, she had temporarily rendered her body lifeless. Not even Noir could induce dreams in a dead adversary. However, this was not a method that could be used repeatedly. Not only was the strain of revival burdensome, but repeated separations could gradually weaken the connection between her body and soul. Eventually, she might separate her soul from her body and never return, which would effectively be the same as dying. Still, it's possible, Sienna surmised. Destroying the city's nightmare had been effective. The dream Noir had imposed on the city was still in a disarray. Otherwise, even with her soul separated, Sienna would have been trapped in the city's dream. The dream Noir was now showing operated only within the consciousness of one person instead of the entire city. Although repeating it could indeed become a form of suicide, Sienna still had an answer to Noir's attack. But honestly, Sienna didn't want to repeat this method several times. She hoped to end it with just this one time. The magical attack had been effective. The arrows of soul power had certainly destroyed Noir. Hundreds of sharps containing murderous intent had been simultaneously lodged into her. Despite this, Noir still moved. Her body slowly leaned forward. The arrows lodged in her body made an unpleasant noise as Noir moved. With a swish, she pulled out the arrows in her eyes. Her eyeballs weren't plucked out along with the arrows. The shattered irises regenerated before Sienna's eyes. "It hurts," Noir commented. The arrows piercing her cheeks and lips fell out. Noir smacked her lips and her torn cheeks a few times before smirking. She turned her purple gaze towards Sienna. Sienna attempted to separate her body and soul again, but it proved unnecessary. Noir had not used forced slumber. Seeing Sienna jolt, Noir laughed mockingly. "Scared?" she asked. It was a taunt. Sienna's eyebrows furrowed in anger, but she couldn't retaliate. Noir's attack was much faster than Sienna's. Noir suddenly appeared in the air and swung her foot. That was all it took to end Sienna's flight. She could no longer fly and crashed to the ground. "Sienna Meridian, your magic hurts. Sir, I'll admit it's a fine murderous intent, but you can't kill me," Noir sang softly. Noir spread her arms wide as Sienna, flattened on the ground, cursed and slammed her hands into the earth. Chains shot up from the ground and wrapped around Sienna's wrists. It was the power of the demon eye of divine glory, the chains of incarceration. "The only murderous intent that can kill me belongs to Hamel. The only murderous intent I wish to die by is Hamel's," continued Noir. The chains continued to sprout and bind Sienna's body. Noir looked down at Sienna's form as it was forced against the ground, then murmured softly, "I will not die by the likes of your malice. No matter how much you hate me and wish to kill me, your hostility is nothing to me. You do not belong here. You should not have come to this place. Crazy bitch." Sienna cursed. That's a phrase I've heard too often. It's not even offensive anymore. Yes, I am crazy. Crazy with love for Hamel. Noir shouted. Noir raised a finger. She continued to shake her fingers to conjure illusions. One by one, kitchen utensils appeared before her. Knives for chopping vegetables and cutting meat, a pot for stirring soup, forks, spoons, plates, cups, and other implements that seemed unlikely to harm anyone. Perhaps this would be better for you?" Noir's lips twisted into a mischievous smile. Fwoosh. The crowded array of tools transformed entirely into books. A large bookshelf suitable for a library, a rocking chair, and even a fireplace appeared. Sienna's face contorted horribly. She barely managed to lift her head and look upward. She understood what Noir's illusion meant. It was a tremendous insult and disrespect. "I won't kill you," Noir said with a smile. "You just need to lie there on the floor as you are now, buried and crushed under the boring, insignificant dreams you cherish, doing nothing. Stay alive and just watch as I kill Hamel and Hamel kills me." The library furniture and books began to fall toward Sienna. Could such an impact alone be fatal? Noir entertained the thought and laughed softly. If that was how she died, if such a trivial death were to be Sienna Meridian's end, then, well, that couldn't be helped, could it? Noir harbored no killing intent with this attack. She was merely pouring the library Sienna dreamed of over her. If Sienna were to die from this, it would be nothing more than an unfortunate accident. Frankly, witnessing such an accident might even be enjoyable. Noir watched with a mischievous grin as Sienna was squashed by the library. Boom. Everything halted just before the final crash. "Wow," Sienna exclaimed. Noir's eyes widened as she observed. She didn't stop just with words but continued with actual applause. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of ordinary applause rose into the night sky. This wasn't mere mockery. Noir sincerely admired the present Sienna. The chains of incarceration that were created by the demon eye of divine glory had been severed. Naturally, it was not Noir who had broken them. Sienna had done it herself, breaking the chains and rising to her feet. Though Noir claimed no malice in her action, everything she had caused to fall had stopped in their tracks. That too was Sienna's doing. "Quite impressive," Noir said sincerely. The chains of incarceration blocked mana and magic. It was a deadly antithesis to any sorcerer. Breaking them with magic and stopping the fall so promptly was no small feat. "Perhaps I underestimated you? Maybe I should have paid more attention," Noir chuckled as she spoke. Sienna did not reply. She stood, wavering slightly, exhaling a labored breath. Sharp pain radiated throughout her body, and a burning rage simmered within her chest and mind. Sienna bit her lip hard as she lifted her head defiantly. "Ahaha." Noir burst into laughter upon seeing Sienna's face. Sienna's eyes were bloodshot. Blood streamed from her nose, lips and eyes. It was evident that Sienna had exerted herself greatly in her struggle to escape the chains. "You seem to be having a hard time, huh? Perhaps that's for the best. Sienna Meridian, I won't retract my statement about not killing you. Given your recent efforts, you've maintained your dignity, so why don't you just sit quietly and watch?" Noir suggested. Sienna did not respond. More precisely, she couldn't hear Noir's cackling laughter. "Do you have the means to treat your wounds?" "Oh, it looks painful even to me. Sorry, I'm not accustomed to using the demon eye of divine glory like this. It's a bit difficult for me to control the power," Noir admitted. She could see that Sienna's limbs were bloodied. In her struggle to break free, Sienna's flesh had been crushed and bones broken. Noir clicked her tongue and waved her finger. Whoosh. A large armchair appeared next to Sienna. It was a rocking chair. "There, sit comfortably. There are plenty of books. Just pick one and read." "I really don't want to bother with you," Noir said and turned around nonchalantly. Only a short time had passed. The attacks she had focused on Eugene had not yet ceased. The bombardment continued incessantly, blinding to the point that the scenery was obscured. The onslaught would not end as long as Noir wished for it. No matter how much Eugene destroyed, slashed, and burned things to ashes, Noir could always conjure more attacks from those ashes. "Really now?" Noir's eyebrows furrowed. She didn't even need to look back. She had created a chair and even provided books. Had she needed to create a lake or river as well? "You're too greedy," Noir uttered in annoyance. She turned her head to look behind. She could see Sienna gripping her staff with her bloodied hands and pointing it toward her. Her eyes were bloodshot and red as she glared at Noir. "If you disregard my kindness, even I cannot help but become angry. Should I tear off your limbs to make you behave?" Noir asked. Still Sienna did not respond. Her anger had long surpassed its limits, preventing her from hearing Noir's taunts. Instead, she distinctly heard other voices, Christina and Anissa's. Despite being busy with other matters, they were aware of Sienna's injuries and intended to treat them. No need, Sienna thought, directly rejecting the saint's offer for healing. "I like it better this way." The restriction and pain of her broken limbs made her acutely aware of her pitiful state. Sienna bit her lip once more. Whoosh. Soul energy surged and a galaxy appeared behind her. This spectacle annoyed Noir. She saw the vast galaxy unfolding behind Sienna. It was different in depth and intensity from anything she had seen in Horia. Noir felt it, though she could not fully comprehend the depth and potential it held. Noir pondered for a moment. Should she put Sienna under forced slumber again? Even if Sienna could separate her soul and extract herself from the dream, she would not be able to launch any counterattacks. Or perhaps she should reconstruct the enormous dream she had ended. The dream that had been broken by shaking the city awake. Although it would be a more fragile, brittle dream than the original, it would still suffice to imprison and kill Sienna. Dreams are, after all, meant to be awakened from. She recalled the voice. A thin smile graced Noir's lips. That alone made her abandon the idea of reconstructing the city's dream. Really now, Noir muttered under her breath once more while shaking her finger. Ting. Chains appeared around Sienna. You should consider yourself lucky, said Noir. Hamel had wished for reality, not dreams. Thus, Noir had willingly died to Eugene in the dream and had forsaken the dream. She did not recreate the demolished dream. This was fortunate for Sienna. If Noir had not abandoned the city's dream, Sienna's magic would never have threatened her. So, you should appreciate your current luck and mercy. Stay still, she advised. The chains slithered towards Sienna. She did not react and stood motionless. Sienna kept Mary pointed towards Noir just like before. The anger that had swelled in her chest cooled, and her mind became tranquil. In the frozen silence, only the clinking of the chains rang clear. She listened more intently. Beyond the sound of the chains she heard faint whispers. This was not human language but the voices of mana she always heard while metamorphosing. She listened to these whispers. The chains of incarceration were one of her many traumas. She remembered how helpless she had been in Babel after being restricted by those chains. She had been left unable to do anything. But this was not Babel. This was the city of Noir Giabella, the queen of horrors whom Sienna had despised. Sienna admitted it. Noir was stronger than her. Even if she was the queen of horrors, she was truly powerful. Do nothing and just stay still? Watch as she and Hamel kill each other? Of course not. Sienna despised everything that mocked her powerlessness. She had already been sick of this damn emotion 300 years ago. She never wanted to experience it again. To overcome it, she needed to surmount those damn chains. The chains of incarceration moved towards her, and at that moment, Sienna's time stopped. The world's time flowed uninterrupted, but Sienna's did not. In her own eternity, her consciousness accelerated. The moment the chains touched Sienna, the galaxy unfolded behind her, radiated light. This was the manifestation of her endless mana. Sienna herself had dismantled the eternal whole, which she thought was already complete, in the process of reaching the divine level of magic. The present form was not merely infinity in words. It spoke of infinity and did not remain finite. The infinite magic comprehended the power of incarceration. Like a blooming flower, the magic pushed the chains away. The chains began to corrode after being wrapped in magic. All of this happened in an instant. Noir could not comprehend what had happened to her. It all felt like a sudden illusion. It wasn't much different, really. Just as Noir had transformed illusions into reality through the demon eye of fantasy, Sienna had conjured miracles and illusions originating from mana. These were chains replicated through magic. Hundreds of chains swiftly bound Noir. Aha! Noir gasped. Sienna's chains possessed a power similar to that of the chains of incarceration. Noir's dark power was being suppressed. Noir laughed in delight as she felt her power being drained rapidly. She was quite pleased with Sienna Meridian's current malice. If not for Hamel, such malice alone might have excited her. But with Hamel present, infidelity was out of the question. How could she stray when the man she loved was watching her with wide eyes? Noir chuckled and tried to move her body, but it barely responded. The chains were incredibly strong and even Noir couldn't easily shake them off. Yet Noir whispered without a hint of panic, "Is this your true limit?" Sienna had just knelt on one knee after staggering. She gasped for air and clutched her chest with her hand. Replicating the chains of incarceration through magic, suppressing Noir Giabella's endless and ferocious dark power, all of it placed a great strain on Sienna. "I'd clap again, but my hands are tied. Or maybe I should kill you with praise." Noir gave a deep sigh. "This is why I didn't want to play with you." The smile vanished from Noir's face. Me being like this and you like that. It's as if I'm. A delightful chill ran down her back. She wanted to be deeply embraced by the murderous intent. A villainess tormenting the heroine. Noir sighed heavily and turned her head. Eugene, who should have been trapped in an endless bombardment, was now looking this way, not with a single wing but a pair of blazing wings of fire. Noir saw the swirling black ashes around Eugene. Had he obliterated the attacks with a single strike? Impossible. The bombardment should have continued. He must have burned the very illusion I created, Noir realized. She saw Levantian glowing with a dark, burning flame. Eugene was exuding more firepower than when he had killed Gavid Lindman. It didn't look like he had used ignition. So what were those wings? Noir felt a moment of doubt but quickly composed herself. This intent is taken from fewebnovel.co. She grimaced. Noir struggled within the binding of chains and burst into tears. Help me, Hamel, she cried.